Sold to the Alpa King. Chapter 12. Alara stood by the fortress's inner courtyard, taking in the early morning hush. A shaft of pale sunlight fell across the worn stones, highlighting the lingering scorch marks from past battles. She held a small earthen jug in her hands, determined to bring it to the infirmary. The fortress had been unusually calm the last few days, which allowed her to settle more deeply into her new role. Mate to Ezra, student of magic, and fresh leader within the pack. She drew in a breath, reminding herself that each day was a new chance to prove she belonged here, and to learn control over the powers that pulsed within her chest. She tucked the jug under one arm and began walking, her thoughts drifting. After the momentous events of the past weeks, her mate, marking with Ezra, standing by his side in confrontations, and experiencing true intimacy for the first time. She sometimes felt like she was living someone else's story. Yet the sensations in her body told her it was real. She could still taste the warmth of Ezra's presence in the back of her mind, the echo of his heartbeat that sometimes mingled with hers. Their bond was a living thing now, stronger than any vow alone could have conjured. As she reached the corridor leading to the infirmary, a voice called out behind her. She turned to see one of the younger fortress warriors approaching, wearing a harried expression. He carried a stack of reports in his arms, breathless from running. "Alara," he said, voice cracking a little. "Can you come quickly? There's an incident in the eastern storeroom. Something about supplies, and I think your magic might help." She hurriedly handed off the jug to a passing servant, telling them to deliver it to the infirmary on her behalf. Her mind flashed with concern. She had never used magic to solve such practical problems, yet she felt compelled to assist. Without hesitation, she followed the warrior through a maze of hallways and down a narrow set of steps that led to a cramped area typically used to store grains and preserved goods. They emerged into a chaotic scene. Several crates lay toppled, scattering dried corn and wheat across the stone floor. A pungent smell of spilled oil hung in the air. Two pack members knelt near a broken barrel, trying in vain to contain a slow, creeping liquid that threatened to spread. Alara knelt to help, intending only to push the oil back into the barrel with a cloth. But something in her chest stirred, an involuntary ripple of power that crackled along her limbs. She jerked in surprise, unable to stop the surge of energy that raced from her fingertips. A sudden burst of golden light flared, meeting the slick oil. Instantly, it froze in place, suspended in a shimmering film that clung to the stone floor and the broken barrel. Alara gasped. She hadn't meant to do that. For a moment, everyone stared in stunned silence, unsure what had just happened. Slowly, Alara rose to her feet, her pulse racing. The cold sweat on her brow told her she was losing control of her magic far too easily. An older figure stepped out of the shadows carrying a walking stick, carved with strange runes. His hair was silver, and though Alara had seen him at pack gatherings, she did not recall ever speaking directly with him. He cleared his throat. "My name is Eamon," he said gently. "I've studied wolf magic for many years. I believe it's time someone guided you, Alara, before your powers cause more unplanned surprises." She swallowed hard, looking around at the displaced supplies and the floating film of oil. The fortress members stood quietly, watching her with a mix of awe and trepidation. She felt her cheeks burn. I'd like that. Please, help me." Eamon nodded, stepping forward to press a supportive hand to her shoulder. "We'll tidy this up," he said, addressing the others. "Bring some fresh barrels. We'll see if this oil can still be salvaged. In the meantime, Alara, let's step outside. There's a courtyard with more space to practice." She followed him gratefully. As they walked, he spoke softly, telling her about his life as a scholar of wolf lore, how he once traveled to distant lands studying the rare magic that some alphas and their mates possessed. Alara listened intently, relieved to hear that she was not alone in her struggle. By the time they reached the courtyard, she felt calmer, though the memory of her accidental outburst left a knot of unease in her stomach. Eamon drew her into the center of the courtyard. The air smelled of dew, and the faint fragrance of a flowering vine that clung to the walls. He placed his walking stick aside, then turned to face her. "We'll start with something simple," he said. "Focus on that barrel." He pointed to a dusty wooden container near the courtyard's edge. "Picture your energy forming a protective shield around it, but only that object, not the air around it or the space beneath it. Very specific control is key." Alara nodded, inhaling slowly. She closed her eyes, allowing her thoughts to drift inward. In her mind's eye, she conjured an image of the barrel enveloped in a faint, shimmering film, something akin to what she had done unintentionally before. Almost at once, she felt her chest tighten with power, and a swirl of warmth rushed to her arms. She opened her eyes to see a faint glow flicker around the barrel, but it rippled outward, catching a nearby set of stone steps in its aura. She clenched her jaw, forcing the magic back, feeling sweat bead at her temples. Eamon nodded thoughtfully. "Good start, but you need to refine your focus. Don't visualize everything. Narrow your vision. Feel your wolf, your magic, but let them work in tandem. You must also trust yourself." Alara took another breath, summoning the presence of Asina within her. "Are you here?" she asked inwardly, feeling a subtle response in her mind. "Always," Asina replied, her voice strong, reassuring. Alara's pulse steadied. She tried again, reaching for the magic in her blood. This time the glow materialized only around the barrel, shimmering for a few heartbeats before fading away. She grinned in relief, although she was exhausted from such a seemingly small feat. Eamon's eyes glinted with approval. "Well done. We'll continue with these exercises daily. Soon, you'll learn to wield your gifts without fear of losing control." They practiced until Alara's arms shook with fatigue, and a dull ache settled behind her eyes. Throughout, Eamon gave gentle corrections, praise, and reminders that the bond she shared with Asena was the key to controlling her spells. At times, she sensed a watchful presence at the courtyard's periphery, a comforting familiarity that told her Ezra was nearby, observing from the shadows. She saw him at last when the session ended, stepping out to greet them. He wore a smile that lit his features, and Alara noticed a subtle shift in his appearance. His posture seemed even more commanding, and as he bent to kiss her cheek, she glimpsed a faint streak of silver hair at his temple, matching what she had heard about the silver patch on his wolf form. It gave him a quietly regal look that suited him more than she might have expected. Ezra thanked Eamon for helping Alara, then turned to her, voice tinged with pride. "I saw you working your magic. You did well." Alara laughed shyly, rubbing her arms to ease the tension. Well enough not to freeze the entire courtyard at least. She paused, catching a closer look at him. "Ezra, your hair, has it always been like that?" He reached up self-consciously to touch the silver strands. "No, it's new. Just like the patch of fur on my wolf. I realized it a few days ago during a patrol. My senses have grown sharper since our bond became stronger. My hearing, my vision, everything feels heightened." Her eyes shone with curiosity. "Is it a good feeling or does it worry you?" He regarded her carefully. "At first I was concerned. My second chance mate bond with you apparently awakened something I didn't know I had. But I feel stronger and more capable of protecting us. And truth be told, I kinda like the silver." He gave a soft chuckle and she found herself smiling along with him. She reached out, allowing her fingers to brush the silver hairs lightly. "I think it suits you. Makes you look more—" She trailed off, her cheeks warming. Ezra lifted an eyebrow teasingly, and she ducked her head. "More powerful," she finished in a murmur. His gentle laughter brought a flutter to her chest. Taking her hand, he turned to Eamon. "I appreciate the assistance you're giving Alara. Is there anything you need from me?" Eamon inclined his head respectfully. "Your presence is support enough. Tomorrow, we'll begin combining physical training with magical focus. For now, rest is crucial. Overexertion can lead to further mishaps." Ezra nodded, tucking Alara's arm under his. "We'll make sure of that." He then guided her out of the courtyard, strolling at an easy pace through the fortress's corridors. Occasionally, they passed pack members, each bowing or greeting them warmly. Alara noticed that no one seemed taken aback by Ezra's subtle change in appearance or by the closeness they shared. They reached a quiet corridor where the torches flickered with a gentle glow, casting dancing shadows on the walls. Alara felt the day's fatigue catching up with her, and she leaned against him with a weary sigh. He paused, concern on his face. "Are you all right? Do you want to head to our chambers?" She hesitated, feeling a swirl of longing and caution. Training had drained her, but she also wanted to spend some time alone with him, away from watchful eyes. "Yes," she said softly, "but maybe we can stop by the kitchens first?" "I'm starving." He grinned, guiding her in that direction. As they turned a corner, Lucas and Damien emerged from an adjacent hall, arms laden with rolled-up parchments. Both men looked relieved at the sight of the Alpha, greeting him with a quick salute. Lucas's eyes flashed with curiosity when he saw Alara's tired posture, but he said nothing about her training. "Alpha, Alara," Lucas began. "We just finished patrolling the fortress walls. All looks calm. We caught wind of a stray wolf near the west gate, but it turned out to be a lone traveler passing through. No threats reported." Damien handed a parchment to Ezra. "Also, we have final tallies on supply usage. Alara, I heard about your magical incident in the storeroom. Nothing to worry about, apparently. The supplies are intact." Alara felt her face warm. "I'm just glad I didn't ruin half the grain supply. Eamon is helping me learn to keep it under control." Damien offered a reassuring smile. "Good. In any case, we should be prepared in case something big happens again. Our perimeter is only as strong as our readiness." Ezra scanned the parchment quickly, then nodded. "Thank you both. Alara and I will review these details tomorrow. Right now, we need to rest." He gave them a friendly but firm look, and both men stifled amused grins, likely guessing that the Alpha and his mate sought a moment's peace. They nodded and continued on their way, leaving Ezra and Alara to resume their path to the kitchens. The kitchen staff, seeing them enter hand in hand, smiled in greeting. A young cook hustled over with bread still warm from the oven, adding some cheese and dried fruit without waiting for them to ask. Alara watched the bustle of staff around them, feeling the fortress's heartbeat in every conversation and clang of pots. More than once she caught curious glances or gentle, knowing smiles. She took the offered food, thanking them softly. Ezra guided her to a small table near the corner, a spot usually reserved for quick breaks between chores. There, they shared a simple meal, exchanging a few quiet words. "I saw you training with Eamon," Ezra said between bites. "It looked intense." Alara nodded, chewing thoughtfully. "It was. I didn't realize how exhausting using magic could be. I can't imagine how to manage full-scale spells in a real fight yet." He covered her hand with his, eyes warm. "You'll get there. Just take it one step at a time. Remember how far you've come since we first met." She felt her cheeks heat as she recalled their earliest encounters, when she had been more uncertain, more frightened of the fortress's demands. "Sometimes," she admitted, "I think about the day I arrived here, terrified of what would happen next. Now I can't imagine my life anywhere else." They finished their meal and he helped her up, tucking her hand into the crook of his arm again. "Let's go then. We both could use some quiet." They made their way upstairs to the private chambers they now shared. The corridor, illuminated by soft torchlight, felt like a safe haven. She breathed in the warmth of the space, letting the day's tension slip away. Once inside, he closed the door gently, and for a moment they just stood in silence, looking at each other in the modest glow of a single lantern. Without a word, Ezra reached for her, and she came willingly, relaxing into the circle of his arms. "You look tired," he whispered, smoothing a hand over her hair. "I am," she said, voice muffled against his chest. "But I'm also happy, especially when I'm with you." Her words felt strangely bold. Before, she might have blushed at saying something so direct, but she was growing more comfortable in her new life and with Ezra. He kissed the top of her head. "We'll rest, and tomorrow you'll show Eamon how formidable you can really be." There was a faint rumble of pride in his tone, reminding her of how deeply he believed in her. She smiled, letting him lead her to sit by the hearth. They spoke in hushed tones, detailing small events of the day: the stray wolf near the gate, the fortress repairs continuing in the East Wing, and how Damien suspected a harsh winter ahead. Their conversation flowed with the ease of two people who had found solace in each other's presence. Finally, she nodded off, her body too weary to fight sleep any longer, and he carefully gathered her in his arms, tucking her into the bed. She drifted off, surrounded by his warmth, a sense of security enfolding her like a promise. The next morning came quickly, and it found them in the training yard. Alara rubbed the sleep from her eyes, listening to Eamon lay out the day's plan. First, we'll mix physical combat with magical focus. That means you'll learn to call on your magic under pressure without letting it explode uncontrollably. She nodded, heart pounding in anticipation. A few pack members lingered around the edges, curious to see how the Alpha's mate progressed in her training. Damien and Lucas were among them, occasionally shouting encouragement or suggestions as she attempted to summon small barriers while fending off a wooden staff Eamon wielded to keep her on her toes. After a grueling half-hour, her arms burned. She managed to produce a shield of golden light that flickered against each mock strike. Though it wavered, the more she tried to maintain it. When Eamon finally lowered the staff, she gasped for breath. Sweat dripped down her forehead and her chest heaved with effort. Focus, Eamon reminded her kindly. Magic thrives on intention. If your mind drifts, the shield will falter. She dipped her head in acknowledgement. Closing her eyes, she called on Asina. The wolf's reassuring growl of support rumbled in her mind, and she exhaled, letting her resolve solidify. This time, the shield that appeared felt less forced. She opened her eyes to see it gleaming more steadily, shimmering before her, like a protective veil. Eamon nodded with satisfaction, tapping it gently with the wooden staff. It held firm. A sudden hush fell over the training yard, and Alara noticed the watchers parting to make way for a massive wolf that strode into view. Her heart stuttered for an instant. Ezra had shifted into his wolf form. She still hadn't grown accustomed to the sight of him like that, though she found it striking. The new patch of silver fur glinted in the morning light, a bold streak along his flank. He padded closer, his amber eyes calm but keen, a clear mark of his heightened power. Damien, standing at the side, chuckled quietly. Someone was eager to show off his changes, he remarked, giving the wolf a respectful nod. The onlookers whispered in admiration at the Alpha's updated appearance. Ezra circled Alara and Eamon, sniffing the air. Alara felt the tether of their bond, the constant awareness that united them even in this form. She could sense his approval at her steady shield, an unspoken warmth that made her chest flutter. He let out a low rumbling sound, not quite a growl, more like an encouraging hum. Eamon raised a cautious brow. Does the Alpha wish to assist in training? Ezra's wolf form dipped its head in a nearly human-like nod. Then he padded over to a stack of wooden practice swords, nudging them with his muzzle. Alara saw the gleam in his eyes and understood immediately. He wanted to test her in a safe but challenging way. She exhaled, steadying her nerves, and allowed the shield to dissipate. They moved into a slow, choreographed dance of training. Damien or Lucas would toss a wooden sword, and Alara would have to erect her shield quickly while Ezra lunged at her in wolf form, not with full aggression, but enough to demand focus. She could barely catch her breath, caught between admiration and the serious intent of the lesson. She found the magic swirling with her heartbeat, each pulse calling up golden energy. She felt her bond with Asina intensify, and each time she succeeded in keeping the shield intact, she sensed a flicker of pride from her wolf. By the time they called an end to the session, Alara's limbs trembled. She stumbled over to a nearby bench, gulping water from a flask. Ezra shifted back to human form behind a makeshift barrier, pulling on simple clothing before joining her. His hair gleamed, the silver streak at his temple noticeable, and a matching patch of damp silver fur around his shoulders slowly receded as the shift fully completed. He offered her a warm, if slightly tired, grin. "You did well. I can feel how hard you're trying." She let out a grateful laugh, feeling the flush of satisfaction. It helps having such an impressive training partner. Her eyes lingered on his silver hair, her body still humming from the adrenaline. They stepped away from the yard, slipping into a quieter hallway. Ezra leaned in to speak softly, making sure none of the bystanders overheard. You're improving faster than I imagined. I see it in the way you carry yourself, not just in magic, but in how you stand among others. There's more confidence in you. Alara fiddled with the edge of her training tunic, smiling shyly. Sometimes I'm not sure if it's confidence or the fear of letting everyone down that pushes me. But I'm trying to be a good mate for you, and a leader for the pack. Her voice wavered slightly. I never saw myself in that role, but I feel responsible now, like I owe it to everyone to learn. He brushed a gentle thumb across her cheek. We chose each other for who we are, not for who we have to become. You're doing wonderfully. Don't doubt that. The sincerity in his expression made her heart flutter. A servant rushed up then, offering them towels and bowing respectfully. Alara thanked him, wiping the sweat from her brow. Ezra caught her free hand, giving her a tiny squeeze. There was a shared understanding that once they had composed themselves, their responsibilities would continue. By midday, Alara took a break from training to attend a small meeting about fortress supplies. Damien, Lucas, and a handful of elders gathered in the Great Hall. The subject of discussion was a scheduled supply run to a nearby trading settlement. Alara had quietly prepared some notes, wanting to show she could contribute more than magical skill. She felt a small thrill of nerves when Damien motioned for her to address the group. She cleared her throat. We're facing a few shortages, some medicinal herbs, also extra lumber for repairs. I suggest we send 2 wagons, accompanied by a small escort, to return with what we need. Because the roads might still be unsafe, we'll need experienced warriors on board. I can also go if necessary. An elder with graying hair and a stern demeanor listened intently. You've analyzed our deficits? He asked. Yes, she answered, handing over a neatly written list. I included approximate costs and how much we might trade from our existing surplus of grain. After the near accident in the storeroom, we confirmed we still have enough to barter. The elder glanced over the paper, nodding thoughtfully. This is thorough. I see you've considered potential routes as well, to avoid bandit territory. Impressive. Damien grinned, crossing his arms. Alara's been busy. She's learning the fortress's workings quite fast. A wave of pride warmed her cheeks. She spotted Ezra standing in the back, arms folded across his chest, an encouraging smile in his eyes. Their bond hummed, urging her to step fully into this role. She took a breath. If the group sets out by dawn tomorrow, we can return by nightfall, assuming no delays. We'll need enough weapons in case we encounter trouble, but we'll keep the party small to move quickly. Lucas moved to stand beside the elder, offering support. That makes sense. I'll organize a guard detail. 3 or 4 experienced warriors plus Alara, if she's up for it. She hesitated, scanning the faces around her. It felt momentous, her first time playing such a leadership role outside the fortress walls. But she steeled herself, remembering her vow to grow into this responsibility. I'll go, she said, at last. The fresh air might do me good after all this training. Besides, I can put my abilities to use if we face any threat. The elder gave a curt nod, though a hint of respect edged his features. Damien scribbled notes, while Lucas started rattling off names of potential escorts. The meeting concluded, leaving Alara both excited and apprehensive. Ezra caught her eye from across the hall, and she saw approval shining there. He joined her side as the elders dispersed. He spoke in a low tone, ensuring privacy. You're ready for this. I'm proud to see you step up. She exhaled, her nerves pulsing. I just hope we don't encounter more than we can handle. But if we do, maybe my training will help. She tried to sound confident, though a flicker of doubt pricked at her. Ezra rested a reassuring hand on her shoulder. We'll prepare as best we can. And I'll be here, waiting when you return. His eyes softened. Though I'd rather be the one going out on dangerous roads. Her heart twisted fondly at his protective nature. I know, but this is something I need to do. As the day wore on, Alara found moments of closeness with Ezra in between various tasks, silent touches, playful banter, and a brief interlude where he caught her in the courtyard, bringing a simple picnic lunch he had asked the kitchens to prepare. He led her to a quiet spot near the fortress walls, where the grass grew in a narrow patch. The afternoon sun gave the area a warm glow. They sat together, sharing sandwiches and fruit in a rare lull of calm. She took a bite of apple, the crisp sweetness soothing her hunger. "This is nice," she said, leaning into him. "Almost feels like we're not in a fortress preparing for who knows what crisis." He chuckled softly. "I wanted to remind you that we can still have moments like this, no matter what our responsibilities are." He reached for her hand, threading their fingers. "You're so strong, Alara, yet you also have a tenderness I don't want you to lose." She found herself moved by his words. Before she could overthink it, she turned to him, pressing her lips to his in a soft but deliberate kiss. It was a small step in initiating affection, something she might have been too shy to do in the past. She felt his pleased hum and he kissed her back, deepening the contact for a few heartbeats. When they parted, her face was warm, but she saw no judgment in his eyes, only delight. He brushed a stray hair from her cheek. "You're full of surprises today." She looked away, a bashful laugh escaping her. "You're the one who showed up with a picnic. I guess I just wanted to thank you for being so patient with me." His expression grew serious. "There's no hurry, Alara. We find our way at our own pace." He paused, eyes drifting to the silver patch at his temple. "It's still strange for me too, knowing I have all this power I never tapped into before. The bond has changed both of us." She nodded, understanding. "Then we'll figure it out together." They lingered a while longer, half reclining on the grass, sharing small kisses and talking about trivial things. Eventually, duty beckoned once more. She had further training with Eamon, and he had to check on the fortress's scouts. They parted with a promise to steal another moment as soon as they could. That evening, Alara reconvened with Eamon in a more secluded training space, enclosed by high walls. This time, Eamon introduced motion drills, forcing her to move swiftly while summoning her magic, to replicate a real battlefield scenario. She stumbled at first, nearly tripping over her own feet, but gradually she found a steady rhythm. By pushing her body and mind to work in unison, the magic felt less wild, more a deliberate extension of her will. Asena's presence guided her from within, urging her to trust her instincts. Each flicker of golden energy that danced around her hands felt more natural than it had in the morning. After she completed a final drill, Eamon smiled, looking proud. "That's enough for one day. You've made remarkable progress in a short span. Continue like this, and you'll be more than capable should the need arise." Alara bowed her head in gratitude, exhaustion tugging at her. "Thank you, Eamon. I'll keep practicing." He patted her shoulder, adding in a quiet tone, "Remember, your bond with Ezra, your connection to Asena, these things are gifts. Never be afraid to use them, but do so with wisdom." Night had fully settled by the time Alara wrapped up her training. She walked through the fortress corridors, lulled by the familiar flicker of torchlight. A passing elder offered her a calm greeting, and she realized how routine this place was becoming to her, how much it felt like home even with all its demands. She thought back to her first days here, how frightened she had been. Now she felt herself growing stronger, forging an identity that transcended the timid girl she once was. She finally returned to the private chambers she shared with Ezra, expecting to find him asleep. Instead, he sat near the fireplace, reading by a low lamp. He looked up when she entered, a fond smile curving his lips. "How was training?" "Exhausting," she said softly, crossing the room. Her muscles ached, and she wanted nothing more than to collapse beside him. "But I'm getting the hang of it, I think." He stood and, without a word, began rubbing her shoulders in gentle circles, easing the tension from her muscles. She let out a blissful sigh, leaning into his touch. They shared a quiet moment like that, the soft glow of the fire making the room cozy and intimate. Eventually, she turned and rested her head against his chest. Through the mate bond, she sensed his contentment, his admiration, and the steady love that bound them. She pulled back slightly. "Tomorrow I leave on the supply run," she reminded him. "It'll be my first time traveling beyond the fortress in an official capacity. I'm a little nervous." He placed a soft kiss on her forehead. "Damien and Lucas will make sure the route is safe. You'll do fine. If anything happens, trust what you've learned and rely on your escort." She nodded, swallowing her anxious thoughts. "I will. And then I'll come back." He smiled. "I'll be waiting for you." His voice dropped in a playful whisper. "Don't take too long, or the fortress might find its alpha pacing holes into the floor again." She laughed at that, imagining him wearing a groove into the stone halls. Her heart lifted, warmth flooding her. "I promise I'll hurry." The two of them settled down to rest, talking in quiet tones about small fortress matters, the day's training, and even the possibility of new visitors in the coming weeks, merchants and travelers who might bring news of the outside world. Eventually, Alara dozed off, lulled by Ezra's presence and the soft crackle of the hearth. In the earliest hours before dawn, she stirred with a sudden jolt. A dream had come to her, vivid and unsettling. She saw shadows creeping over the fortress walls, an unseen figure orchestrating a silent invasion. Before she could piece it together, she awoke to find her heartbeat hammering, a thin sheen of sweat on her skin. Ezra, roused by her distress, rubbed her back in soothing circles. "Bad dream?" he asked, voice thick with concern. She exhaled shakily. "Yes, I'm not sure what it meant. Maybe it's just my nerves about leaving in a few hours." He drew her against him, letting the mate bond soothe her racing mind. "Keep an eye out," he advised gently. "Sometimes our instincts warn us of real dangers, but it could be nothing." She tried to settle back into sleep, but a nagging sense of foreboding lingered in her gut. It was well after dawn when she finally rose, determined to keep her appointment with the supply run. Damien, Lucas, and a group of 3 warriors awaited her at the fortress gates. The wagons were laden with items to trade, and she double-checked the lists she had so meticulously prepared. Ezra stood by, offering last-minute guidance to the escorts. Then he turned to Alara, voice gentle but firm. "Stay safe. I know you can handle yourself, but I can't help worrying." His gaze rested on her, an undercurrent of affection mingled with protectiveness. She gave his hand a squeeze. "I'll return before the night is through, and I'll be careful." He leaned in, pressing a tender kiss to her forehead in full view of the guards. Her cheeks warmed, but she felt a surge of quiet pride at how natural it was now to stand at his side. With that, she climbed onto the wagon, and Damien signaled the departure. As the wagons rolled out through the gate, Alara caught Ezra's eye one last time. He looked resolute, that streak of silver visible in the morning light. She breathed in, trying to quell the faint apprehension lingering from her dream. This was her time to prove she could handle more responsibility, both as a mate and a leader. The fortress walls receded behind them, and she felt the sway of the cart beneath her. Her mind flicked between worry and excitement, her magic still pulsing softly in her veins, a reminder that she was no longer the frightened outsider who had once arrived on these grounds. She was Alara, mate to the Alpha, learning to command her wolf, her powers, and her destiny in equal measure. The day ahead promised new challenges, and she intended to face them head-on. Yet in her heart, she could not shake the sliver of unease left by her dream. She glanced at Damien, who rode alongside, offering her a nod of encouragement. For now, she would focus on the mission. Only time would tell if the shadows she foresaw were a mere figment of her imagination, or a portent of trials yet to come.